Hey everybody, I'm here with Pastor Ryan today, and we're going to do a little bit of an interview because Ryan is going to be transitioning to our lead pastor soon. So I thought we could take some time to just get to know Ryan a little bit better and have some conversation, maybe some fun conversation about maybe like our favorite meals that we've ever had. I don't know what mine is, so I'm going to have to think about that. So, but first question. For those who might be newer to the Summit, what is it about pastoring a church in Lee Summit, your hometown, that excites you?
That's it, CG, you said it. I was born and raised in Lee Summit. I love this place. I think it's great. It's gotten bigger since I was a kid, right? I mean, I used to drive by where the shopping centers are, and it was like fields and cows and all that. And not only that, it's now sort of expanded out to Blue Springs and Raymore and Independence and Raytown, sort of all meld into one thing that's kind of the Lee Summit area and the community that we serve. And I love that. My favorite thing, though, is running into people who I went to high school with out in the community. And they ask me what I do for a living. And I try to avoid the conversation because I know what they think I'm doing, which they're surprised I'm not in jail probably. But they are always surprised when I tell them I'm a pastor. And I love that. And I hate it. I love it because what it tells people is that if God can use me, he can use anyone. So I have an opportunity in Lee Summit to communicate that to people and just to interact with people on a regular basis.
That's so cool. So you're following after and taking the place of someone who has led our church through a lot of transitions, even recently, and challenges throughout his years of ministry, COVID, all that kind of stuff. So what is something that you've learned from Pastor Jim that you want to carry into your lead pastor role at the Summit?
Wow, that's a big question. I've served with Jim for 9 years. No one loves and respects Jim more than I do. And so it's hard to think about that and to come up with one. But if I had to come up with one, here would be the thing. And this seems like so basic, right? You're going to hear this and be like, well, of course, that should be true everywhere. But it's not. And so it's super important. And it's to tell the truth, to always tell the truth. There are so many places where people spin the narrative or the story or the situation to be beneficial to them and make themselves come out on top looking good. And Pastor Jim has always said, tell the truth, have integrity, be honest. And people have experienced that at the Summit. I mean, even when he says what they don't want to hear, it's like when you tell people the truth, there's respect for that. And it's a biblical thing, right? I mean, you think about things like where Paul writes in Ephesians to put off falsehood, or he writes in 1 Timothy to be above reproach. You want to make sure that you put on those biblical characteristics. But above that, I mean, if you want to lead, part of leading is creating an accurate picture of where we are so that we know where we can go. And if you're not honest with people about the reality of the situation, it's really hard to do that. And so, man, it is a sad testament that being honest is something you have to look to as a key marker of someone's leadership. It just kind of go without saying, right? Yeah. But Jim has really led with that. And sometimes he's given us some hard truths about the reality of our church and the state of our culture and the way that we're living. And as he challenges us, it causes us to grow. And so my hope, my prayer is that I can do the same thing. I can help people see reality. And when we do, it helps us to know how we can follow Jesus even better.
That's so good. So was there a moment in your life that you knew you were to be a pastor? Was it one specific moment, or was it like a series of different things that led to that? What were they?
That's a great question too, CG, because it was sort of both. So when I went to college, my major was German. How crazy is that, right?
Do you remember any German words?
9. That means no, but I do know some words. My vocabulary has mostly left me. I can count, say the basic stuff. Like I could ask to go to the bathroom if I needed to, but
are you ever going to go to Germany?
I would love to.
Use that?
That's a bucket list kind of thing for me.
Okay.
That's somewhere I definitely want to go. I want to be able to use my skills that I have a little bit. I may even do a little Rosetta Stone before I went back just to polish it up a little bit.
German for dummies.
German for dummies. I love it. And I'm definitely a dummy now because it's been a long time since I've used it. My first week of college, they called me the provost office and they said, hey, we're so glad you're a German major, but we don't have that major anymore. So I had to make a decision. Like, what am I going to do? What is my major going to be? And so I drifted. I changed my major a lot of times. My plan was to major in German, go to law school. Because I want to be an international attorney. You're like, where'd you come up with that? My uncle is an international attorney.
Oh.
I respect him. I look up to him. And the fact that that's what he was doing, I was like, I could do that too. That's a pretty awesome thing to do. But my dreams all came crashing down that day when they told me no more German major. And so I sort of went off on this journey to figure out what I was going to do. I could have switched schools. I could pick a different major. I majored in lots of things in college. I took lots of classes thinking I might do something and then didn't do that thing. I did, business, education, religion, psychology, which is the degree I actually finally got. Pre-law, I did that one for a while. So all these different things. And ultimately it was like, okay, so how can I finish? And in the midst of all of that, there's all this stuff kind of going on in my life. I became a shepherd in our dorms. William Jewell, Christian sort of denomination college. And so had an opportunity to lead Bible studies and provide spiritual advice to people in the hall. And leading Bible studies, it led me to think, oh, this is actually kind of cool. Studying the Bible, I hadn't really done that before, and helping people understand it. And went and interned at a church, and I had the youth pastor at that church said to me, he said, you could do this. And I needed to hear that. And I think so many of us need to hear that. We need someone to identify that we have something that God can use and just say it to us. And when that happens, I think that unleashes maybe what God is already doing. And so I interned there for a couple summers and became a youth pastor, and kind of the rest is history, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I think about even when I became a pastor, you said you need someone to tell you that you can do it. You were that for me.
Yeah.
And so I just think about that. It's kind of come full circle of how you have impacted other people like me. So that's really cool.
That's
I
very
love that.
cool.
So I've had a chance to serve alongside you and watch you grow nearer to Jesus for the past 8 years. Can you believe that?
That's crazy.
That's a really long time.
I know.
We're getting old. But not everyone listening or watching gets the unique opportunity to see that growth and actually witness it. So in your leadership and spiritual life over time, what has driven you to be the best disciple that you can be, best pastor that you can be for people?
Yeah, those are so closely related for me. So there's this desire to lead well and to set a good example. I want to be a good dad. I want to be a good husband. I mean, those are really important things. I want to be a good pastor. That's at the top, near the top of my list, right? But most importantly, I want to follow Jesus, and I want Jesus to be the most important person, force in my life. I want to make sure that I'm following Jesus with all that I have and all that I can be. And so I actually read something recently, and I've shared this with you before. I know that you've heard this, and so you're like, Ryan, I know that. And so here's what I read. It said, this is from Fan the Flame. Jim Cymbala wrote, "We should bear in mind that the spiritual condition of any church greatly depends on the leadership it gets from its pastors," people like me and you, right? "It's difficult for a congregation to rise higher in spiritual growth and maturity than its shepherd. If the pastor is lukewarm about the things of God and the Spirit, what hope is there for the congregation to be on fire?" And I think, if I stand in front of our church and I look out at them and I think, man, what direction are we going? It shouldn't be something I'm pointing my finger and saying, you need to. It should be more like, here's where I'm going. Let's go together. Let's go on this journey together. And it's an opportunity for us to call each other to something greater as we're doing it. And so when I follow Jesus first and foremost because he's my Lord and Savior, and I want to be the best disciple I can be. But I also know that if our church is going to go where God wants it to go, it's sort of imperative that our entire pastoral staff is doing that as well.
Of course. So who has been the biggest inspiration on your faith?
Anybody who knows me has heard me say this before. It's definitely my grandparents, my grandpa in particular. I keep his Bible in my office. I remember when I was a kid, I would go over to my grandparents' house, and I like to ride horses with them. You guys have heard these stories before, right? And so Ryan in a cowboy hat, that's a sight to behold.
Can we get a picture of that here?
Nope, I will not allow that
thumbnail.
to be shown. And in order to ride horses, I had to go to church first. And so we'd go to church on Sunday morning. We'd stop and we went to Hardee's, which was really gross. But we'd go to Hardee's for lunch sometimes and go home and ride horses. And my grandpa and grandma always sat down and read the Bible together
Aw.
out loud. And so they would each be in their recliners, and I would sit on the sofa that was kind of adjacent to that. And there would be a John Wayne movie on the TV with the mute button hit and the fires roaring. And my grandparents liked to be about 700 degrees in their house. I think everybody had grandparents like that, right? And so we would just sit there, and they would read scripture together. They always had a Bible plan. They always had a devotional. They were always doing something. And it made such an impact on my life. And my grandparents weren't perfect, right? I mean, they were not perfect, but they still followed Jesus. And I think that set a great example for me of what that could look like in my own life.
Yeah.
And I'm so thankful for the time that they invested in me to make sure that I saw that.
Yeah. So did they live here in Lee Summit too?
They were in Raymore.
Okay, so close.
Close by. Drove down the back roads to their house. I learned how to drive when I was like 13 on the back roads on the way to their house. So we'd pull over, and my parents would let me drive on the back roads. Please don't. There's nothing we can do about that now, right? Statute of limitations or something. I don't know. But I learned how to drive a stick shift. My very first car.
Impressive.
I know I am impressive about that, CG.
You know, I grew up on a farm too, and my dad had a stick shift, but I never actually learned how to do it. It would just grind.
Life lesson everyone should learn. So we need to find someone to stick shift so you can learn. It's something you need to know, CG.
I don't know. I think my time on the farm has passed, so it's fine.
You could still, a little homestead in the Lee Summit area is not out of reach.
Yeah. We'll see.
You need somewhere to grow your flowers and your tomatoes, don't you? Come on.
A little farmer. I love that. Okay, moving on. What is your favorite verse of scripture and why?
Oh, my favorite verse. There are lots of them, of course. But one that just comes to my mind as I think about ministry and where I am and where I'm going, actually came to me at a weird time in my life. I was a youth pastor, and my job was to wrangle teenagers. And so we were in the midst of this season where we had gone from a pretty small group, and the group was growing, and we were tearing down walls to make more space and all this stuff. It was really exciting. But I went in the youth room one Wednesday night after we had our gathering, and I was just sitting there. I'm like, what in the world am I doing? It's like, what is the point of, having teenagers play crazy games and get messy and sing songs and go to small group? What is the point of all of this? And as I was reading the Bible, I actually I came across this passage, and this is the Bible that I was preaching out of at the time. It's the Message,
so fun.
And I used this as my Bible I preached out of for, I don't know, like 10 years or so. So there's lots of notes in here and stuff, but this verse in particular impacted me, and I still think about this regularly. The way the Message says it is very wordy, but it's really clear as well. It's from 1 Corinthians 1:17. It says, God didn't send me out to collect a following for myself, but to preach the message of what he has done, collecting a following for him. And he didn't send me to do it with a lot of fancy rhetoric of my own, lest the powerful action at the center, Christ on the cross, be trivialized into mere words. And I think when you're a pastor, when you're leading people and people look up to you, or you're the person standing up front, or whatever the case might be, there's a temptation for you to think that that's about you. I have no delusion that people come to church because of me. Thank God, right? I mean, there's something bigger that we're chasing after, and putting Jesus at the center of all of that is so important. And so sometimes I need to be reminded that I'm not collecting a following for myself.
Yeah.
I'm pointing people to Jesus and collecting a following for him. And so that verse has been really important to me in multiple seasons of my life. But when it came to me, it was so appropriate and important, and really just helped me recenter my ministry on pointing people to Jesus, making sure it wasn't about the games, and it wasn't about the crowds, and it wasn't about the numbers, and it wasn't about all that stuff. It was about who was following Jesus. And ultimately, I mean, the scale has changed and the age of the people has changed, but it's the same thing, right? I mean, we're still trying to accomplish that together.
Yes. I love that. All right. So I have just a couple of fun questions, because I know that we both are kind of foodie people, right?
I do like food.
So what is the best meal you have ever had?
Oh, CG, best meal I've ever had. Well, okay. So I have to preface it with this. All right. It's really hard to beat anything that I cook at home myself. Okay. So I make some really good stuff. It comes off my Masterbuilt gravity-fed charcoal grill, and it is top-notch. Like, I had tacos de carne asada last night. They would rival any taco joint in Kansas City. I would put them up against anyone. Okay, so.
But what tortillas did you use?
Well, okay, they were not Yoli.
Okay.
They were just corn tortillas that I purchased at my local Hy-Vee, but they were still good.
Okay.
I warmed them on the griddle, but it's not about the tortilla, really.
That's what makes a taco for me.
I'm sorry, but it's about the steak.
Okay.
And the steak had been
Continue.
marinated in lime juice and red wine vinegar and garlic, and it was excellent. Okay, so that was delicious, and most of the meals I make at home are delicious. So I'll just say that. I mean, I'm okay bragging about that just a
Okay.
little bit.
You're making this about yourself now.
Okay, well, you did ask me my favorite meal, didn't you? Okay, so I'm just telling you. But if I had to pick one where I went out, it would probably be Gordon Ramsay steak.
Okay.
It is ridiculously expensive. Okay, so it's not an everyday thing. It's not somewhere I would go on
Like
put on a regular rotation.
birthday anniversary
Yeah, it's
kind
one
of
of those
thing?
types of places. And here's the thing. It's a great combination of the ambiance, the atmosphere when you walk in. It just feels like you're somewhere else. It
Okay.
doesn't feel like Kansas City, right? Feels like New York City or something like that. Just kind of upscale. The service is impeccable. You get crumbs on the table and they come by with a little crumb scraper.
No,
and
they
scrape.
don't.
Oh, I love that. It's like,
I've never
oh,
experienced this type of
CG,
place.
you need to go to this place. It's so wonderful. And the food is just incredible. Steaks are so good.
I've heard you talk about the fries
Yes.
there, right?
You know how good it is because you recall the side dish I had when I went there.
Yeah,
one
side dishes
time.
are my favorite part of
That's
meals,
how
so.
we know it's good. So yes, these truffle fries. It was a heaping plateful. In fact, on my Instagram, there's a picture of me and Jackson with this heaping plateful of fries. So good. And then not only that, we went for a birthday celebration. They brought me out a complimentary dessert, which you've paid for because you've paid enough for the meal, right? So I'm not acting like it was, but it was this incredible deconstructed cheesecake thing with edible flowers.
Oh, did you eat the flowers?
Did I eat the flowers, CG? I did. It
I am so proud of
good.
you.
I know. It was like vegetables. I
So,
felt like I was eating healthy.
You know, on my flower farm that we talk
I
about
do,
Homestead,
yes.
I think maybe I should have a bed of edible flowers.
Okay.
Wouldn't that be fun?
Yes, you can put those
I'll
in
let you
the
eat them.
cookies that you make me. Flowers on top.
That sounds
But
good.
okay, all of that aside, it's also really important to note that the most important thing to have is a good bowl of popcorn. And I think so. Meals out are great, but knowing where to find the best popcorn is really important. And so movie theater popcorn is clearly, kind of a cut above. But Topsy's, great popcorn. You
Yes.
can just pop in and get a limeade and a popcorn. I do that for lunch regularly. Okay, I mean,
Is
this
it
is good
fresh
stuff.
squeezed limeade?
Oh yeah, they have the thing where they drill down on it and squeeze it out. Oh, it's so good. Yeah, hop over to Summit Fair, get
So-
yourself a limeade.
I agree with your Topsies.
Okay.
That Topsies popcorn is the best.
Are you about to make me mad?
Maybe.
Oh, CG.
Because you know that I love baseball and Cardinals fan.
Oh,
But when I
CG.
go to Kauffman Stadium to watch the Royals
Yeah.
usually lose, my favorite thing is
Okay.
to get Topsy's popcorn because
Okay.
it's so good.
Yeah, Topsy's popcorn is good. So I thought you were gonna make me mad. You were just being
That makes you
ridiculous
mad.
about sports.
A little bit.
Okay, well, when the Royals and Cardinals played very recently, the Cardinals almost had a perfect game thrown against them.
Almost.
They were terrible.
It's a rough season. It's embarrassing.
All of that.
We're
yes.
just going to move on to 2024 and see
Yeah.
what happens.
Hey, let's talk
next.
about St. Louis's football team.
They don't have one.
Correct.
Well, actually, they have like the weird
Yeah, the
not real
XFL
NFL,
or
whatever
whatever.
it
Yeah.
is.
But can we just agree Kansas City's a better city?
It's cleaner.
That wasn't the question.
But let's talk about this. There is
I know.
Clementine's
I knew
ice
you were
cream
gonna
in
say
St.
that.
Louis.
I knew you were gonna say that.
Which this is something we agree on. The best ice cream we've ever had.
Okay, until Chateau Milk bought Betty
Okay.
Ray's, and now we have something else, don't we?
Yes.
So that's going to take it to the next level.
Also, Chateau, Ryan's friends, if you're watching, we would recommend, we would really like to have some ooey gooey butter cake
Yes,
ice cream.
That's the thing at Clementine's, right? Ooey gooey butter cake ice cream. Yeah.
Delicious.
And I always appreciate it when you go to St. Louis and you bring me back a pint of ice cream.
I do.
I am so appreciative
Put
of
it
that.
in the
CG.
freezer. Here you go.
That just makes my day.
So,
I write that on your annual review every year. CG gives ice cream. It's
so on this
wonderful.
topic, there was one time during kind of when COVID was happening, and Clementine's was shipping
Oh yeah.
ice cream. Do you remember this? And they were like shipping it with dry ice, and we're like, yeah, let's order some. And
Yeah.
so we like split some of the pints, and we were like, it's gonna be great. Comes in all wrong,
Melted.
melted.
First of all, melted,
and
right?
all the wrong flavors.
All the wrong flavors.
So
That was so sad.
it was very sad.
Because we didn't end up getting any of our gooey butter cake ice cream, did we?
no,
Oh.
Yeah.
We got some other stuff that wasn't.
Don't order
as
ice
good.
cream online.
No, yeah, we should have. I mean, come on, we should have known that.
Yeah.
We're smart people. It's hard to ship ice cream. We know this.
Yes. So funny. Okay. So one more kind of random question.
Yep.
What do you like to do in your free time besides eat?
Oh,
Good
free
food.
time. I do like to eat. I like to read. I read all kinds of stuff. I really like fiction. So I'm not a sci-fi person. Like,
Yeah.
I know people like Star Wars and Star Trek and all that. So I don't watch any of those movies if I can help it. But I do really like dystopian fiction.
Okay.
So like the Silo series, it's out on Apple TV, just released a TV version. I haven't watched it yet, but the books were phenomenal. So I love stuff like that. I read historical fiction. I do read, I love to read memoirs and biographies.
All that stuff is so interesting.
Yeah, exactly. Theology books, Christian living, kind of how to follow Jesus more, all of that kind of stuff. So it's a wide range of things. So I like to read. I like to fish. I like to go to random sports events where my kids are involved. Go to things at school that they're a part of.
Yeah.
And Rebecca and I like to go out and eat together. I mean, that's an
Yeah.
important part of my hobbies, right? So,
Yes, I agree. That's so fun.
yeah.
All right. Last thing.
All right.
In the next 2 to 3 years, what is your hope? What is your prayer for the Summit Church and our people?
I recently read about something called the String of Pearls framework. And it's an idea that was put out by this psychologist named Phil Stutz. And it's really interesting. And I think it describes so well where we can go as a church. If you think about a pearl, it's naturally made. And most things that are naturally made have imperfections. It wasn't made in a lab to be perfectly round. It's got a flat side and it's got inconsistencies in the color and all that kind of stuff. And when they're making a string of pearls, they look at the pearl and they note the imperfection and they place it on the string of pearls anyway, because it's part of what it is, right? And so each one of those pearls has some sort of imperfection that's on it. And so often, I think we as people get stuck on making things so perfect that we can't live with imperfection. But if you think about each pearl that goes on the strand as an action step towards the end goal, there's something to be said for progress over perfection. It's not perfect, but you put it on the strand anyway, and you move on to the next thing. And that applies to so many areas of our life, doesn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
we're never going to be perfect. But if we wait to be perfect until we do something, we're never going to get there. I mean, I think about Dave Ramsey's financial peace stuff. It's not like, I'm not going to think about my finances because my finances are a wreck. Okay, well, you're missing the point, right? I mean, you've got to start somewhere and be okay with the fact that it's not right yet, but I'm having progress toward that. And it's so true in our spiritual lives as well. People say, I don't have time to read the Bible as much as I want to. So I just don't read the Bible. And I'm like, no, wait a minute. There's this idea that, something is better than nothing and progress is better than perfection.
Yeah.
And so over the next several years, what I hope that is ingrained in us to take steps, to do the next thing so we can get where we're trying to go. So what does it look like for us? It means that we're people who are making sure that we're on God's mission, who are out in the world making a difference, who are becoming devoted followers of Jesus in every way that we can, because we believe that when you follow Jesus, you find life. And so it's that whole taking a next step. What is next for me? What's the next hill to climb? What's the next discipline I can implement so that I can get where I want to go? And ultimately, I hope that all of our goals is to follow Jesus more closely, to have a relationship with him that surpasses all others, and that your life really does make a difference in the world.
I love that. So exciting. I'm looking forward to the next years and the years to come. It's going to be a good time.
We're going to do it together.
Yeah.
Thanks, CG.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. See you later.